Hi folks, Dave, the Honest Audiophile. This is the SeeAudio Yume 2, and these are my Honest Audiophile impressions. I want to thank Linsoul Audio for providing the SeeAudio Yume 2 for review. Do greatly appreciate it. Linsoul Audio, you rock. Alright, so the SeeAudio Yume 2, this will set you back $200 from your bank account when you order them from Linsoul Audio. They have one dynamic driver and two balanced armatures in a hybrid configuration, 17 ohms of impedance, 113 decibels of sensitivity, and a frequency response of 20 Hz to 20 kHz. The Yume 2, this is the second generation, second variation, whichever you want to call it, of the Yume. I did a review of the original Yume a while back. There'll be a link down below and somewhere on screen for that review. Yume 2 comes in this nice blue box. Got some artistic flair on the front, specs on the back. Taking off the lid, you're greeted by this envelope, which will show you what is inside it. And then also 5 pairs of silicone tips. We'll talk about the tips here in a minute. All right, let's show you what came with the accessories. So first, don't eat any Cheetos while you're carrying around your carrying case. It's white, has some nice branding on it, opens up like a ring box, something from the jewelers, but it'll protect your Yume 2 very well. Not really pocketable though. You get a pin, just in case you want to wear some SeeAudio pins. You get a SeeAudio postcard. You get a user manual. You get like a warranty card. You get 4 extra filters in case you need to replace them. And you get a cleaning cloth. All right. And you also get your IEMs and the cable. So, the Yume 2. It's kind of cool looking. You got this metal shell design with some gold logos on it. It's not that fat. It's fairly light for a metal shell. Very, very flat back and a very, very short nozzle. There is no ergonomics to this at all. It's flat like a stone and doesn't have that much of an angle on it. Could cause problems for some. Here's what the tips look like. They are kind of wide bore silicone. No foam tips were included. The cable. To say that the ear hooks are flimsy is an understatement. They have no support whatsoever. Way too loose. They do connect with a metal 2-pin connector. And then you go to the split and you have a cinch. The cinch really doesn't do a whole lot. It just kind of rides along on the cable. Doesn't cinch anything. Cable's nice and thin, nice braid, and then terminates to 3.5. The build is nice, but the fit is not so nice for my ears. So, short nozzle, flat back. This is usually a pairing that is not very fitting for my ears, and that is the case with the SeeAudio Yume 2. Goes in the ear. I have to really wiggle it in place just to get it to be at the right angle and to kind of sit there without falling out, because these ear hooks do absolutely nothing to support. Isolation of outside noises is not very good. It's probably about 50% of outside noises is blocked. If somebody's using a vacuum, has a TV on, talking loud, any sort of thing, you're going to hear it. They don't block much out, mainly because it has a short nozzle and it doesn't insert very far. Also, the angle is not very good, at least for my ears. Now, this may fit your ear very well. Does not mind. It's just a weird fit. I really have to fit it in there and mess with it. And then after about 5 or 10 minutes, it's going to come loose and I have to wiggle it around again and get it to stay in place. So not that great of a fit for me. Tips really didn't matter in helping that. I tried all kinds of third-party tips as well, and they altered the sound pretty significantly, but they didn't really help with fit. It just doesn't work for my ears very well. As far as being able to drive the Yume, they're fairly easy. They're not very picky whatsoever, had no problems whatsoever using them with the periodic audio rhodium, which is not a very powerful dongle. Also the 7Hz 71, and then all the other dongles that I have, DAPs and desktop, everything was able to drive them with ease, no problems whatsoever. Before we get into the sonic impressions of the SeeAudio Yume, I would like to thank my supporters through Patreon and YouTube memberships. Thank you very much for all that you provide to the channel. I know that these days are trying in the world, and financially it's a struggle. So I do greatly appreciate what you are able to give to the channel and support. And thank you for giving to a channel that you want to see grow and continue, and that you enjoy and appreciate. So thank you very much. You are much appreciated. If you are interested in supporting the channel, please check out the links down below. There's all kinds of ways that you can contact the channel, follow the channel, and support the channel. You can either give for one-time gifts through Venmo and PayPal, or you can support monthly through Patreon and YouTube memberships. Also, don't forget to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down to the video, and hit that notification bell and the subscriptions if you haven't already. All right, so how do the SeeAudio Yume 2 sound? So the SeeAudio Yume 2, it has a bass that has quite a bit of mid-bass quantity. Sub-bass is there, but it's not really that present, and the upper bass has enough. Overall, the bass has a fun factor to it. It has quite a bit of mid-bass punch and slam. There's a lot of quantity there, but the bass isn't the most defined. And at times it can sound a little bit muddled, a little bit jumbled up, and it can get a little confused on busier bass tracks. But for the most part, the tonality's there, and the timbre's there, and the detail retrieval's there. Resolution could be a little bit better, especially for the price point. And it just lacks a little bit of texture and a little bit of naturalism. It just kind of, at times, kind of sounds like it's going through the motions. The mids. The mids of the Yume 2 have nice tonality, and they have nice timbre, and they have a pleasantness about them. But the note weight and density is a little bit thin and lacking. The bass has more, and the mids have a little bit less, and they kind of have a more airy approach to things, a little too spaced out, and they kind of lack and sound thin compared to the bass. And I like the tonality of it, and I like the timbre of it, and in the way that it presents, but it's just kind of missing that naturalism, that realism that the original was known for. And then the treble. The treble is nice and extended and has a nice clarity to it and a little bit of sparkle and energy. At times it can be just a little bit too elevating, a little too excitable, but it never becomes fatiguing. It has like the mids, it has a nice airiness to it, and it sounds at times just a little too airy and a little woo. But overall, it's a nice, extended, well-controlled treble. So the bass, the mids, and the treble play nicely. The bass is a little bit more prominent and dominant than the mids and the treble, but overall, it sounds good, and it's a pleasurable listen, soundstage wise. The soundstage is nice and wide. It has a good portrayal of sizes. If it's a larger recording, it's going to sound a little bit wider and a little bit larger. If it's a more intimate, it's going to come in a little bit more intimately. It does decently with depth. It's not the most accurate in depth, but it doesn't sound crowded or muddled or confused, except for on busier tracks. You can place things, you can kind of go, okay, that's a little bit behind or a little bit in front. Imaging does well. It tracks things across the stage, and you can kind of go, it's over there, it's over there. It's not the most precise and accurate. It's not laser point perfect, but it's kind of more like it's in this neighborhood, but it's a very small neighborhood. Tonality is good for the Yume 2. As I said, the note weight and density is a little bit lacking, and it doesn't quite have the body that I wish that it had. Detail retrieval is all right for this price point. It's about average. Resolution is good. Bass could be a little bit more refined. Overall, I like the Yume 2. I think it's a good IEM, and it's a different take from the original. Speaking of the original, have it right here. So the original Yume doesn't have the bass impact that the Yume 2 has. But what the Yume does in comparison to the Yume 2 is it is more detailed and more accurate, and it just sounds more refined. And it has a little bit more texture and just a little bit more of the details and naturalism of the bass. And then the mids have a fullness to them. They have more body and note weight, and they have a little bit more forwardness than the Yume 2. They don't quite have the airiness that the Yume 2 has, but in my opinion, the Yume, the original, sounds more natural and accurate in the mids than the Yume 2. And in the treble, the Yume 2 has more treble. It has better extension in the treble, and it is more elevated, and it has more air and space and more sparkle and energy. But at times it does have that little bit of too much sparkle and energy, and it gets a little too excited. Whereas the original Yume is a little too laid back and a little bit too chill. But when it comes to the Yume 2 and the Yume, I would actually take another IEM over it instead, and that's the Moondrop Kato. The Moondrop Kato, to me, is more natural and accurate throughout, has better bass presentation, sub bass, mid bass, and upper bass are more accurate and true, have better detail retrieval and resolution. The mids are more natural and have better tone and timbre, and an accurate spacing and airiness throughout. And then in the treble may not be as extended as it is on the Yume 2, but it sounds more natural and accurate on the Kato. And the Kato has more control throughout, and it has a better soundstage, more accurate and true with imaging, and better with placement and with depth. So overall, I would take the Kato over the Yume 2 and the Yume. Something different, but I'll stick with the original and the Kato. It's been Dave, the Honest Audiophile. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video. Speaking of next video, somewhere on screen, subscription links, notification bells. If you haven't already, please check those off. And then don't forget to check out the links down below. There's all kinds of information down there regarding how you can contact the channel, follow the channel, support the channel. All that kind of stuff is down below, along with where you can purchase gear. And there's tier lists and gear recommendations, and music recommendations, and all kinds of other things down below. So don't forget to check out the links. And last but not least, don't forget to enjoy the music, and that honesty is the best policy.